Hey folks, Toby Mathis here, and important news about the Corporate Transparency Act and the beneficial ownership information filing requirements under FinCEN. I'm going to read this to you so that there's no confusion. What we had is the Treasury literally come up and say, we're not going to enforce this thing. So the law is still on the books. We're supposed to be filing by, according to the BOI website, by March 21st for anybody that was obligated to file because they had an entity that existed in prior to 2024, and anybody that's been filing while we were in the period of times when there was these stays in effect. There was national injunction against the enforcement of the BOI. Supreme Court overruled that. Then another district court did another injunction, and now that's gone. And the FinCEN gives us a March 21st deadline. Now the Treasury Department comes out with this, and I'm just going to read it for you. It's on X. The Treasury Department is announcing today that with respect to the Corporate Transparency Act, not only will it not enforce any penalties or fines associated with the beneficial ownership information reporting rule under the existing regulatory guidelines, but it will further not enforce any penalties or fines against U.S. citizens or domestic reporting companies or their beneficial owners after the forthcoming rule changes take effect either. The Treasury Department will further be issuing a proposed rulemaking that will narrow the scope of the rule to foreign reporting companies only. Treasury takes this step in the interest of supporting hardworking American taxpayers and small businesses and ensuring that the rule is appropriately tailored to advance the public interest. So what does this mean? It means that for domestic LLCs and domestic corporations, domestic trusts that are filed with the state, not things like living trusts or land trusts, but business trusts that are filed with the state, they're not going to enforce it. Now, this is where it gets weird because the Corporate Transparency Act is still the law of the land. What you have is the policing agency saying, we're not going to enforce it. So this is like, a state legislature saying, hey, speeding is, 45, and the police come out and say, speeding is not 45. We're not going to give anybody any tickets, blah, blah, blah. You even had Secretary Scott Bessent immediately put out, this is a victory for common sense. Today's action is part of President Trump's bold agenda to unleash American prosperity by reining in burdensome regulations, in particular for small businesses that are the backbone of the American economy. President Trump comes out, and I'll put these up on the screen so you guys can see them. Exciting news. The Treasury Department has announced that they are suspending all enforcement of the outrageous and invasive beneficial ownership information reporting requirements for U.S. citizens. This Biden rule has been an absolute disaster for small businesses nationwide. Furthermore, Treasury is now finalizing the emergency regulation to formally suspend this rule for the American businesses. The economic menace of BOI reporting will soon be no more. So for those of you guys who've been fighting against this, this is going to be a great day for you. For those of you who actually filed it, I'm going to restate a position I've said repeatedly on videos, which is if you're a small business owner, when you obtained your EIN, your employer identification number, you gave them your information anyway. When you file your taxes, they have that information. It's the Treasury. It's the same place. They just didn't have a database for it. So they were saying, we want to stop money laundering. We want to stop foreign influence. But then you'd have this requirement too, that you didn't have to file if you made over $5 million. So only the big players that were criminal enterprises got away with it. And they really just started picking on the small mom and pop. So your voice has been heard. It looks like they're taking steps. Congress needs to take steps to eradicate this thing, because otherwise you could just have them decide we're going to go ahead and enforce it again. Like all it takes is the Treasury to say, nope, we are going to enforce this rule. So where does that leave you? If it's me and I'm filing an LLC now, I'm probably not going to be filing my beneficial information with FinCEN. If I've done it, I'm not worried about it because, frankly, they already had this information. We don't know what's going to happen. But the law that Congress passed is still the Corporate Transparency Act. What you have is the Treasury saying we're not going to enforce it, which means the Justice Department may get involved. We'll see what happens with the arguments that are going to be Texas top cop shop and some of the other cases when they get to the Supreme Court. We'll see. Maybe they'll just say it's unconstitutional, or maybe they'll, which is weird because if they say it's unconstitutional, it's being limitedly, there's a very limited enforcement, which is for foreign entities, and they want to still do that. But if you're a U.S. citizen and it's a domestic entity, they're not. If you're a foreign entity and you're registered to do business here in the United States, you still are. So you're still required to file, and they're still enforcing it. But for the locals, no. The domestic entities, no. It's they're not requiring the enforcement, but they could change that in a heartbeat. So so this is what I would say to you. If it's me, I'm not filing, but I'm also going to keep my eyes on this thing. I'm going to be watching the news. You could just subscribe to this channel, and I'll let you know as soon as it comes out. This just came out within the last 24 hours. I'll put up the press release from the Treasury Department. I'll put that up here as well so you can see it. It's, again, very straightforward. Them basically saying Corporate Transparency Act, as it's written, is too invasive as to domestic entities and their U.S. citizen owners. We're not going to enforce it. So what does that mean? It means that let's see, reporting companies only. I was just going to take a look, see if how much they limited. We'll see a regulation here in the near future. I'll probably put it in a video as well when they do, so we can see exactly what they're going to do. But what they're saying is they're not going to enforce it. There's no fines. There's no penalties, and they're putting it in a press release. I'll see if they put it out on BOI, on the FinCEN database. They haven't yet. But when you have the president and you have the Treasury saying this is what we're doing, I think you can rely on that. And so as of right now, if you're a domestic entity, I'm not filing. Good luck. Share it with anybody you want to, and like and subscribe. Thanks, guys.